Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the DC Batman podcast with no limits. We got an extra special juicer episode tonight. We are going to officially go over the Zack Snyder Justice League Snyder Cut news that has been blowing up the internet for like a week. Let's go around the round table. We got Teases over in New York.
Believe him.
We got the Grumpler over in New York.
Yo.
We got the Bat Force Times in New York. We got Robin D. Cross in Canada.
Hi-de-ho.
We got the Trunkler in Chicago.
What's going on?
I'm over in sunny Southern California. And let's just break on into it. So, what was it, like a week ago on the 20th? After years of fans bitching, complaining, cyberbullying, hashtagging, they finally announced Zack Snyder's 20 million plus Justice League cut. So if you guys remember, back in November was probably the biggest movement that occurred with this thing. So essentially ever since the hold on, the background noise is crazy. It's like all I hear.
It's so bad. So I hear like buzzing and blipping and
maybe just hit mute if you're not talking right away. That might help.
That's what I do.
There it goes. Gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
It was the Grumpler. I knew it.
Oh shit!
Sorry. I'm just sitting in my living room, bro.
Probably the fucking Popo coming to take you away.
Mute too. I don't know. It might have been Teasus or
might have been.
Did you hear it now?
No.
Oh shit! It might have been Teasus. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
No, I'm on now.
Today. I changed my underwear today. Can't do that.
It's all gone now. So, anyways, what were we saying? Yeah. So, probably very soon after the OG Justice League cut got released, the Whedon cut, as people say, people noticed right away the tone was completely different than BVS. Much lighter, much brighter. They completely changed the soundtrack from Junkie XL to oh my god, with Danny Elfman. Yeah, so a lot of changes. A majority of people did not like the Justice League. I think that was number one. It did not feel like it was in line with Snyder's tone and feel and vision. And number two, some people felt that the change, regardless of if you like Zack Snyder or not, it just wasn't a very good movie. And people argue back and forth. I didn't mind it. I didn't think it was that terrible. It definitely was not BVS in that tone, but I didn't think it was like a piece of shit movie. Ben Affleck's Batman definitely is not the highlight of the movie. Anyways, so people were pissed off. People were upset. People knew something had happened. Everyone had made their claims that Whedon had taken a ton of stuff out that Snyder had filmed. And now, 2 years after that, in November, Twitter got really loud and was able to actually get the support of Ray Fisher, Jason Momoa, Gal, Ben, and Zack Snyder all tweeted out, released the Snyder Cut on the same day in November, the 2-year anniversary of the release of, I want to say, was it Justice League? Yeah. So that is from the Hollywood Reporter article that came out. So there was a report that came out the same day that it was announced. But on that day in November, that's when Warner Brothers was like, fuck, okay, this shit is kind of getting big. And there's a reason that fans want it. And we're noticing that it got trending. Millions of people were talking about it. So that day, the following morning rather, is when Warner Brothers called Zack Snyder and wanted to talk about it. So It was a complete 100% fan movement that started on Twitter, and it turned into Warner Brothers actually going back and reaching out to Zack Snyder to ask what he thought about it. At that time, that was already after the huge shakeup. So the same people that were in charge that made all the moves for Justice League were no longer there. So this Warner Brothers reaching out to Snyder as a new Warner Brothers with a new head, new people in charge. And that's kind of also what helped the situation as well. So the Hollywood Reporter article basically states that on that day, they reached out to Snyder. They said they want to start talking about it. So he got together with Debbie. They went back to their vault and their hard drive. They got all this footage together. They decided to make a presentation. They had about 12 Warner Brothers heads come down to their home, and he put together a presentation in his theater room. And Jim Lee was among one of them. I can't remember who else, but he was just talking about, in the article, they actually interviewed Zack Snyder. He talks about how they had to figure out what this would look like. What would it be? How would we go about doing this? Because, it would be a different movie, obviously, than what was put out. So we had to figure out, like, in what way would this be best to kind of display it? I think at that time already they had been talking about streaming would probably be the better kind of way of doing it, because a theatrical release probably wasn't necessarily in the cards, because I don't think they wanted to compete with like the movies in the theaters. They didn't want to make it seem as if this was like the new direction. It was literally just going to be kind of like, rather than making a director's cut Blu-ray, you'll put it on a streaming service first. Maybe they'll do a physical product after. So as talks continued, they were kind of talking about how there was at least like 4 hours of footage. So, would it be a one sitting 4-hour movie, or would they break it up into kind of episodes? Later on, they talked about how once they said, okay, yeah, like you can do this. That was pretty much in February, late February, I think. And then at the beginning of March, late February, March is when the pandemic happened. And at first they thought that, oh shit, well, we're not going to get to do this because, we're going to have to get into production and we're going to have to physically make a movie or finish a movie. And how can you do that when all this shit's happening and there's no production going forward at all? But I guess they talked it over and they decided that they'd find a way to figure it out. They had like a year. So they said 2021 would probably be the time when they release it. With talking to Warner Brothers, they decided that HBO Max would be the way to release it as well. And then it kind of talks about how in the article it says Snyder basically states that he's being allowed to finish his vision. The source, there's unnamed sources that claim a $20 million price range, and that's going to be specifically for what Snyder says that they're going to allow him to do is they're going to allow him to finish VFX, put in the score that was originally meant to be in it, and any kind of secondary post-production stuff. Now, earlier he's been teasing how he has there's at least 2 scenes that he wants to film, he said. One of them was a Martian Manhunter scene where he'd get the actor who played, what was his name? Swanwick, General Swanwick. To come back to film one specific scene where he like turns into and morphs into Martian Manhunter. And there's another scene that supposedly involves Superman, Wonder Woman, Lois Lane, Batman, and possibly Martian Manhunter. So he made that statement about possibly post-production scene because Twitter had done this poster contest where before it was officially announced, he had fans create posters to build up hype for the Snyder Cut, and then he would choose, I think, 4 winners, and from the 4 winners, he would choose a grand prize winner, and the grand prize winner would be allowed to be in person for any post-production work. So that was another hint that like they were gonna actually let him do post-production. So that was the first article, right? So the first article claims they're gonna do it. HBO Max is where they're gonna do it. The rumor is a $20 million price tag. That's not confirmed in the first article. It just says $20 million. So then recently, HBO Max boss, and he's also one of the top guys at Warner Media. His name's Bob Greenblatt. He was on a podcast called Recode Media, and he actually talked about it. And he says, these are direct quotes. "It's been months of discussions with Zach and the producers to figure out how to do it. Greenblatt told the Recode Media podcast of the process behind what eventually morphed into last week's Snyder Cut announcement, but the hard work starts now." And this is a direct quote again. "It isn't as this is fucking crazy, by the way, because this is like, wait, what?" So this is what he says. "It isn't as easy as going into the vault and there's a Snyder Cut there to put out. Greenblatt said. It does not exist. Zack is building and it is complex, while also name-checking new effect shots as a particular focus for the director. So it's not just going to be slapped together recut. Far from it. Greenblatt calls it a radical rethinking of Justice League, and it's complicated and wildly expensive. Then it says the original report stated that the cost of the cut to finish would be between 20 and 30 million. And he said, quote, "I wish it was just 30 million, and I'll stop right there." Holy fuck. So basically he's saying that it's going to cost more than 20 to 30 million, which means that if you're just finishing like VFX, everyone has said that like it shouldn't cost more than that. So this is basically saying that there's more. He's going to do more. He's going to add to it instead of just finishing what he had. He also said we weren't going. Let's not talk to those fans. Let's drive them crazy and not connect with them. Greenblatt affirmed we were actually spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to do this, and there's many hurdles to jump over. Once we saw that we could do it, and once we figured out we could do it, we had to figure out the right economics, which was literally in the last week. We said, let's get this news out there. So they put all this shit together as far as like how much it would cost and what they would do in a week before the announcement officially. Fuck, man. Okay. So then that kind of adds on to the rumors about first, when the first article came out, they're just going to do VFX. They're just going to add a score and then touch up whatever they need. Now this, with him saying that, he says that they're going to put out more than $30 million because he wishes that it would only cost that much. So it might be that he's actually going to film new shit for this, which is fucking crazy and pretty insane that a movie that already came out, that they put all this money together, is now going to get a secondary treatment with not just VFX and score, but possibly getting rewritten again and reshot again for certain things that he wanted to do. All right, yeah. So that's it, man. That's the big fucking news from that. I don't know, man. I'm excited.
The main thing that I feel from this is you have to admit that it's ballsy for Warner Brothers to, in hindsight of what they did before, taking what Zack had created and bringing in, what's his name to finish it up? I don't know why I just forgot. Joss Whedon. Bringing him in to rework the movie, change the tone of it, to now, 2 years or whatever later, to now swallow their pride and say, okay, well, we'll put out this version that everyone has been asking for and risk it being much more well-received than what we thought was going to be the right thing.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think this has ever in the history of like cinema been done before, where you allow a guy who didn't finish it to come back and finish it like within 3 years, or no, I think it's been 5 years? Not 5 years. When did fucking Justice League come out? 3 years ago? 2.5, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah, and at most, what they do is like they'll release the director's cut Blu-ray, or they'll release like the extended cut where they'll just put back the scenes that they edited out. But they're, like you said, they're shelling out big budget money for him to reshoot stuff, and I think I'm fucking glad they're doing that, because one of the big things that they're smart, because what they can do now is, because of everyone who fucked up on this movie as far as administration and like media or the production heads, like the president of Warner Brothers, the people who were in charge of making the movie, the people who were in charge, they all got fucking fired and moved out. So they're not there anymore. So this new crew can point the finger at them and say, yeah, they fucked up and they made all these decisions that didn't end up working. We're the good guys now. And now we're the ones who are going to be able to make the fans happy. So yeah, we'll listen to you guys. So it's smart on their end, because this new crew doesn't really have much. Like, yeah, they have to swallow the Warner Brother pride, but they're pretending like it's they don't really have anything to lose. They have everything to gain, because they have an online community that's basically millions of people are saying like, we'll fucking buy a subscription to HBO Max first day if you announce this for sure. So a thing that I also forgot to mention was the way that they announced it was Zack Snyder held a screening for Man of Steel last Wednesday. And then after the screening, he had Henry Cavill surprise join him for a Q&A virtually on a Zoom call. And then they actually added on a bunch of fans to the Zoom call, and they together announced the release of it, which is funny because there's this, I don't know if you guys have been following it, there's this whole underground cult existence on Twitter of all these warring fans about, Snyder Cut versus not wanting it versus it not existing. And one of the big things that like a lot of people call toxic Snyder fans were doing is they were attacking multiple people. So they were attacking specifically, obviously they were attacking, I think it was like Ken Tsuchihara, who was the Warner Brothers studio head at the time. I can't remember who the other guy was. They were attacking Joss Whedon. They were attacking Jeff Johns, who they said, everyone said that these people had nefarious motives and they wanted to get Zack out to begin with, which may or may not have been true. And they used the really sad suicide of his daughter to kind of do it, which is really fucked up. But on top of that, because Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins and Henry Cavill weren't overly like supporting him online, because they weren't tweeting about it enough, because they weren't like making it, because they weren't as loud as Ray Fisher, Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa, they started attacking Henry Cavill and saying that like he's a snake and that he's a backstabber and that he doesn't have any love or respect for Zack. So it was like a year of seeing that online, being like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? And then the reality is Warner Brothers hadn't like re-upped on their deal to have Cavill come back for Superman. Cavill was pretty much waiting for something to happen with that. And I think, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of it, but the Rock's ex-wife and his current manager is also Henry Cavill's agent. Mm-hmm. And she's a very fucking savvy businesswoman who, I believe the reason why Cavill wasn't being so outspoken about the Snyder Cut is because there had not been any announcement as far as him still being Superman or any deals made about how many movies he'd be in. And I think she was keeping a tight leash on him to say, no, don't say shit, because you want Warner Brothers to come to us. You want them to feel the pressure, and you want them to fucking come to us, so that way we have the upper hand and you can ask for whatever you want when they do. Because these motherfuckers are against the wall right now. The fans are on their asses. The fans want the Snyder Cut. The fans want to continue, that kind of cast. They didn't get Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck's gone. They fucked that up. So they want to hold on to Gal. They want to hold on to Jason. They want to hold on to Cavill. So I think she got smart, and she basically said, hold out, don't say shit about anything until we have a deal in place. So it wasn't until last week that he sat down with Snyder for that Q&A that he helped make the announcement, because there's another rumor that states that he's going to be coming back in multiple DC films, having like a wider presence as far as like maybe not his own solo movie just yet, but he's going to be like kind of the thread that connects a lot of the DC movies together. And that's huge for a lot of, Cavill fans. But it also, I think, is important for, if you want another Man of Steel movie, Justice League Snyder Cut is going to put that in the mainstream media's eye. Also with Ray Fisher getting maybe possibly more Cyborg. Ezra Miller, that was another huge thing. Ezra Miller had that crossover episode on Arrow and Flash, the Crisis on Infinite Earths. He reprised his role as Flash with Grant Gustin, kind of like in a crossover event there. And in that scene, he even said, like, I told Ray, or what do you say? Fucking what's Cyborg's name? God damn it, Victor. I told Victor that this was possible. So he even references Cyborg. So another thing that this causes, though, is now there's the Snyder Cut that's coming. So Snyder's original vision is out there, but then there's also a fucking the Batman universe, and then there's also what else? There's a Batman universe. There is the Snyder Cut universe. There is a third one too, right? There's like a weird Birds of Prey Suicide Squad universe out there too. So that kind of makes things interesting, because you're literally going to have next year 2 distinct universes with 2 distinct Batmans on 2 distinct media platforms at the same time. Which fucking man, when has that ever happened? Aside from TV and movies at the same time. So, and then Ruby Rose is out as Batwoman, which is actually why we're recording right now. We're really sad about that.
She's a quitter. She didn't want to do it because it was too much work. Screw that shit.
What do you guys think it is? Because I didn't watch the show. I don't know if it was successful or not, but I know that a lot of people watch the crossover stuff.
Yeah, I guess there was too many days filming in Canada, I believe it was, and there was a lot of training days or whatnot, and she didn't want to work. And she didn't want to work that much.
She didn't want to do her job full time.
Yeah, that's been the what's been leaking out, and that she's hard to work with. So that's not Batwoman. That's
what does she do though? Is she like aside from an actress? Is she like a musician or something or?
I don't know. I think she was
a model?
and she's not a good actress from what I understand.
I just started watching the show.
Oh shit, Grumpin.
And
it's not bad. It's cool. I mean, it's a little Bat Universe fix.
Yeah.
It looked like kind of like the original Birds of Prey show. It had that feel to it from the trailer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. On the second or third episode, they had Tommy Elliott. They didn't have Hush, but they had Tommy Elliott.
I saw the highlights of that.
Yeah,
but
whatever. It's like,
Snyder Cut, Grumpler. Listen. I think this is just one step closer to more Jared Leto Joker.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about. I remember you were the biggest campaigner for the Snyder Cut to begin with. If I'm not mistaken
I was.
myself.
No,
always since day one.
Bigly, I campaigned bigly.
I don't know about you guys. I was a convert because early on when they started saying release the Snyder Cut like 2-3 years ago, right after Justice League came out, I was like, the fuck? Like, he got fired. He didn't finish it. Like, there's no Snyder Cut. Like, how can there be something that doesn't really exist? They never let him do it. They never got past him doing the rough cut, which was a bunch of shit that he didn't finish. Then they fired him. So it wasn't until probably like Momoa said, like, no, I've seen it. Like, he definitely has a cut. That's when I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I started getting interested in it when, for a while there was all that word coming out that like, oh, all the scenes that you like were done by Joss Whedon, and you just don't know it. This scene was done by Joss Whedon, this was done by Joss Whedon, and then Zach had started replying to all that talk on Twitter, and he would post behind the scenes shots that he had taken with his phone. So like there was a shot from the beginning of Justice League, that the scene with Batman on the rooftop. To lure in the parademon, and like he posted a picture of that from his phone and said, oh, and by the way, I shot it. And he just started posting all this stuff from behind the scenes, like, oh, so yeah, there's a lot more that he did of it than we think there was.
I totally forgot. Yeah, he teased all those pictures over like 2.5 years, and like little by little just teasing all those like behind the scenes pictures and shit. What tripped me out is how much of Cyborg that they cut out. Like, there's an entire Cyborg origin in it. There's whole scenes of him in it. There's both of his parents are in it, and I thought that was interesting because in the Whedon cut, I feel like he's still pretty prominent, and he even actually, like, for me, I really liked him in it. But I'm like, man, they really fucking cut that motherfucker out of this movie like a bunch. Man, yeah, it's pretty insane and unprecedented that they're doing this. What's also awesome is, I think it was in November. It was probably that day that no, it was around the time when he just. So it might have been in November. It might have been after, when he announced that the cut that he had was a 4.5 hour, close to 5 hour cut that he had on this massive hard drive of all the material that he had. It was like 5 hours worth of footage that he filmed. And I think assembly cut, that's what he called it. He called it an assembly cut. And I think the assembly cut is what he basically showed Warner Brothers of, like, here, this is everything I have. This is how I'm going to edit it down into the movie. And then we posted a picture of that on Instagram and jokingly put Snyder cut, assembly cut, Subway cold cut combo. We want it all. And
that whole thing was crazy.
Yeah, Subway must have had like a Google notification for any time someone says their name or some shit, because they're not following us on Instagram. But Subway saw that, and the Subway account liked it and commented back, yeah, we want to see it too. # release the Snyder Cut. Someone then saw, well, obviously we reposted that both on Instagram and Twitter. Someone on Twitter saw that and then tweeted at Subway, hey, Subway, if you want to get involved, how many retweets will it take for you to donate like to 10,000 sandwiches to families in need? And they said, I think it was like 50,000 tweets in 24 hours, and they hit that shit in like 3 hours.
Yeah. So then, didn't they they really upped the number of sandwiches they were donating? Yeah.
Yeah, they doubled. Well, because they said you guys did it in 3 hours. We're so impressed that we're doubling the amount of donations that we're gonna get. That was fucking crazy to see. Off of a joke that we made on Instagram, a subway joke, legit like corporate sponsor got involved in a fan movement, and Snyder then went on on Twitter and he retweeted that and he quote tweeted it saying, "Wow, so awesome to see. Thank you, Subway." And then after that, people start this is so fucking smart of Subway to do that, because then all these people on Twitter started taking pictures of themselves going to Subway, buying a Subway sandwich. Oh, what would the Snyder Cut sandwich be? And oh my God, it was so fucking funny. And then after that, other sandwich companies started like getting in on it. Like Wendy's did it. I can't remember what other sandwich companies started doing it, but it was fucking crazy. And it just kind of showed like, Jesus Christ, okay, this thing is getting out of control. Like people on the internet are legit going nuts for this shit, you know?
Whoever runs their social media earned their pay for like the next 6 months with that one move and could just say, okay, I'm going to take a month off, guys.
Yeah. Insane.
You're welcome.
So crazy. It's fucking nuts, man. Like, I can't believe that we're going to get to see two different versions of Batman in the same year. Like, and it's going to be legitimate Hollywood budget. Like, it's not no television show movie, 2 movies of Batman, 2 completely different versions, like actual multiverse of movies, you know? And that's the thing too, is like, why not? Oh, Joker. That's the other universe I was talking about. Yeah. You got Joker universe, you got Snyder universe, you got the Batman universe. Technically, Birds of Prey continued Suicide Squad's universe, because even though Jared Leto wasn't in it, they heavily hinted that he's the Joker in that version of the movie. And he was also like, the way that was so weird that they had the body doubles of him. Rather than having him in it, they had body double versions of him.
I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, somebody asked me, like, I haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, don't see it. They're like, why not? I'm like, you know, your parents had sex. Do you want to watch your parents have sex? Like, there's no, don't want. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to see it. You know it's there. You know it exists. You know what happened. It doesn't mean you have to see it. But I mean,
I wanted to jump in before when we were talking about leaking the photos. I'm curious to see what iteration of Superman they're going to start off with, because Snyder did leak a lot of those photos of him in the black suit and him with long hair, of him kind of resurrecting. So I'm kind of curious to see if he's actually going to do that or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
a major change right there. You know, like following the comic books of of the whole Doomsday comics back in the day.
If you go by what he said before the announcement, he would post those teases and the teases. He would post those. There you go. He would post those teases on Vero, and then he would spend, no joke, like 30 minutes to an hour, like replying to as many fans as possible in the comments. That was cool to see too. Is he was like answering fan questions. He was like doing Q&As every time he'd post a picture. And someone was asking about the black suit over and over again. And he said, and this was after, so January is when they started. No, I'm sorry. November is when they made the phone call. So from November to February is when they were in serious talks. So when he posted this, he had already known that it was going to happen. He just couldn't like officially say anything. But he said, I remember this specifically. All I can say is Zack Snyder's Justice League has the black suit. So there's footage, and remember Cavill posted a picture on Instagram while they were filming. He posted a picture of the black suit, like a really zoomed up close up of the material. So the only time you ever saw it was in a deleted scene where he's walking through the ship, and Snyder also posted another deleted scene where they're walking his body through the ship to go resurrect it. and then the suit like comes out of the wall because it senses Superman coming by. But that's the thing is like based off of this new information that he is now being allowed to change, not just release his version of a cut, but even like have more time and money to tweak and change things. You can't really say that everything that we thought was going to be in it is now going to be in it, Yeah. From like what he was saying from the director's cuts event that he did in Pasadena, that was last year before November, obviously, because again, he didn't have any idea that this would become so like popular at that time. He basically gave out the whole plot of his 3-movie Justice League kind of summary, and that's even up in the air if he's gonna like complete that story or if he's gonna condense it now, because that's another topic of conversation too. Is he planned to make it was going to be a 3-movie arc where the first movie that came out would be the first part, then there would be a part 2, and then there'd be a part 3. Now that he knows that he probably cannot finish 2 more, they're not going to give him 2 more movies to work on. He's probably going to take maybe elements of those 2 and maybe condense it down to the first one. If they're giving him 6 episodes or if they're giving him up to 4 hours to do it, you could probably kind of get away with doing it now instead of trying to cram everything into 1 movie. It'll probably feel like a 2-movie thing, or 6-episode thing. So, but yeah, man, according to him, there's a black suit in there, just depending upon, when he's going to use it, if he's going to use it, But fuck, what do you guys think?
It's awesome that we're going to get it, whether people like it or not. At least it's something else that's out there, especially for the people who didn't enjoy Justice League so much. There's the original version, the original idea for it is going to be out there for you to try.
Yeah. I think people are like, we post about it and people start complaining on the comments about like, people need to stop this shit. Like, this has gone too far. Like, why do you keep letting them do this? And it's like, I mean, it's kind of fucking awesome, really, because we're the ones that pay for it. We're the ones that go and see it. And I was thinking about this. There's a lot of times when a movie is made, especially off of material that is already pre-existing, like comic books or a book, there's already an existing fan base of that thing, And most of the time when you like give this material to it for a director and a writer, it's rare that those people are actual like comic book nerds. A lot, they might have a sense of the world and like of that universe, but they're usually like filmmakers that just happen to have some interest in it. It's not like these guys are making stuff for a comic book fan. They're making a movie from comic book material, source material. So this is kind of like the opportunity now for like, the fans who have already for a lifetime been fans of this stuff have a voice to kind of steer the stuff that's being made into the direction that they want it. And it's kind of insane that it's happening, like instead of waiting like every 5 or 10 years for a movie that you hope might be close to what you want, the internet has made it to where you can be loud as fuck and actually tell the studio, no, this is what we want. Give it to us. And the studio sees how loud you are and realizes, man, if we turn these tweets into dollars, like we'll be rich as fuck. Like maybe we should just listen to these kids. And I think that's kind of what happened in the situation, whereas, yeah, okay, we have to basically admit that we fucked up. Yeah, we got to go back on whatever our plan or vision was for these movies. But there's a huge group of people who are saying they'd pay us if we just give them what something, we kind of already have most of it. All you got to do is finish it. Like, fuck it. Like, why not? Like, this is a good way of getting people to get onto the subscription service. It's a good way for them to for us to gain favor with them. Because after they did it, after they announced it, like, there's all these people that went back, thank you, Warner Brothers, thank you so much, and they were all kind of like being thankful and applauding it and shit. So, I mean, I don't know.
Who knows? It's possible that they gauge the success of this when it comes out, and that could form their decisions for how they move forward with the rest of the cinematic universe.
Yeah. And you can't say that they won't do that. Like, what's so fucking crazy about this is that anything that anyone said before, oh, they can't do that, they won't do that. This is proving that you can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
Like even maybe a week ago, I think Robin, you were like, well, David Ayer has a vision for his cut, and and we just posted it today. He had a bunch of tweets today about his version of Suicide Squad and what happened and what was out there. And you were like, he said he wants to do the dark side stuff, and they didn't let him. And yeah, they didn't let him go anywhere past writing it in the script. They stopped it. They made him rewrite the script. Dark side and Parademons are no longer there. But I was like, in my head, I'm like,
go ahead.
I was like, yeah.
I think we got a delay.
What I was gonna say was like, there's no way that they'll let him go back and do that because it was so far early in the process. They'd have to reshoot, they'd have to rewrite and all that shit and all the post-production. And I'm like in my head, like, yeah, they're not gonna let him do that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, they're literally doing that with fucking Snyder right now. Like they are literally allowing him to go back and change shit. So you can't say that they won't do it for David Ayer, especially if this makes a shit ton of money, especially if the fans then turn and say, thank you for this. Now we want to see you do the same thing with Suicide Squad. Like you can't say that they won't because they're changing fucking history as we speak with it. So
because once they see that, well, we can make a ton of money by taking a movie that's already shot plus extra scenes that were already done, that were already shot, and put up the money to shoot some additional stuff, and we have a whole different version of the movie that 1 million people want to see.
Yep. It would be stupid.
I'm sorry. It would actually behoove them for Suicide Squad because I know that they do have the intent of making a sequel. So if I was them, I would just tweak it, release that 1.5 version, and then just have it roll out 6 months later to the sequel because the iron is still hot. It would almost fix that universe to where you can kind of move forward with it.
I don't think they can unfortunately do that now, though. I'm pretty sure James Gunn's Suicide Squad is already shot in the can.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
it would be nice if they
interest,
could.
Yeah.
But they could say the Snyder Cut being on HBO Max just kills, and then they move forward with doing Suicide Squad, where putting that back to David Ayer's original vision of it, which was being in line with Zack Snyder's story. So like what Ayer had originally written was that was Steppenwolf that they were fighting at the end of Suicide Squad. All those slime monsters they were fighting were originally parademons, and we were going to see Darkseid in it. So his original movie was all keeping in line with Snyder's stuff. So assuming Justice League kills, and if they decided to do the same thing with Ayer's Suicide Squad, then they could conceivably continue with that story in another series on HBO Max, another movie, whatever WB wanted to do. And they could call it, if they decide, okay, well, this is doing so much better than our Justice League movie. Let's put out we'll do another movie. We'll let Zack do it. It'll be called Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 or something like that. So people know it's the sequel to the Snyder Cut. That they could continue that universe if it's proven to be more successful than what they thought the fixed version was going to do.
The fact that they went back and they went back on their original plan for Joker, where everyone involved said, no, it's just going to be a one-shot. The studio, the director, everybody said that. But then Todd Phillips has literally said, they've already talked to us about making another one. That proves that they could do that,
Right. I mean, especially for Joker, I mean, you can't deny $1 billion movie and say we're done. No.
Yeah.
It's like somewhere along the line when this new group of people came in, however many people got changed at WB, the new people that are running things. It's like those new people somewhere along the line said, hey, let's pretend we stop knowing everything and let's start responding to what people like.
Right. Yeah, it's completely changed the way big blockbuster the internet has changed the way big blockbuster movies are made. Like someone mentioned in the comments before, like Sonic was kind of like the first example of it, where they released the trailer and he looked nothing like the video game Sonic, and fans were fucking mad and like were hating on it. They were memeing it to like all shit, like, and then just off of complaints, like they went back and they completely redid it, and then it made a profit, and they now have greenlit a sequel. And I mean, like, it's kind of a great example of how sometimes the internet works toward the benefit of fans, with giving a voice and showing studios that, like, hey, we're done with your fucking, like, you just want to make money. We know it. Well, if you want to make money, do what we want, and we'll fucking pay you the money that you want, you know? And yeah, it's a good thing to it's a good example to give as far as, like, you know, they do Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. It makes a shit ton of money. A lot of people come in and they subscribe to it. Where do you go from there? Like, if you made a shit ton of money off of it, you're not going to stop. You know?
Yeah, because you want to keep all those people, right? If that's all you do that brought those people, how many of those people are going to, like, okay, I've watched everything on here I wanted to watch now.
Yeah,
I'm not going to renew my subscription.
And even if they're too scared to do, you know, the next chapter of Snyder's Justice League, you got fucking Ezra Miller and you got Ray Fisher right there waiting for you to make another movie, or it's either a solo or another film involving them as, you know, the already cast, already film proven versions of those characters, you know. And then you got the crossover event on the television show where people love seeing Ezra Miller on that with Grant Gustin as Flash. Like, you know, it's a fucking crazy and awesome opportunity that this now presents for that world that we thought was dead to open itself back up again. But that doesn't mean that you have to get rid of anything else. Like, you still have the Batman, you still have Joker, you know, you still have Birds of sorry guys, you still have Birds of Prey. And if people enjoy those things, you have now the ability to give every universe and every experience its kind of like time in the sun, you know? And man, I never fucking thought that this would happen. Like, this is legit crazy multiverse comic shit where, like, oh, you don't like Snyder's you don't like Scott Snyder's Batman? Grumps. You don't like Scott Snyder's Batman? That's cool. Because you got Sean Murphy's Batman right over here. Why don't you read White Knight instead? You know, go read White Knight. You don't like Murphy's Batman? You got Morrison's Batman. 7 years of it over here. Like, that's some fucking comic book multiverse shit where you could go to your friend and be like, oh, you don't like this version, but this writer's different, but it's the same character. But look at this. Oh, you think? Well, check this out. This is fucking Elseworld stuff. This Batman's Green Lantern in this world. Batman is fucking, you know, all this. This is nuts, dude. This is like.
And that's why I never.
It's straight a la carte, you know.
Yeah, that's why I never minded the idea of separate things going. You know, whether there's a TV show going, this movie going, and then this other movie that's not related to it, because I'm used to spending my life reading comics where there's 5 different stories going at once with the same character.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it was the biggest fear and the biggest hesitation came from the studios, because as far as a movie is concerned, you want movies to make as much money as possible. You want as many people as possible to go see your movie. You don't want to make it too niche. You don't want to make it too specific to where you're going to alienate part of the audience. So you want it to be friendly to anyone walking in. And the comics are very specific to, like, story and art. So they cater to more of, like, who the writer, who the artists are, and that's what people will gravitate towards. So the studios were hesitant to confuse the audience with multiple versions of these characters, because most people who go see movies aren't really, like, that invested in comics, so they don't understand multiverse. They don't understand different versions. But now, like, it doesn't fucking matter, because, like, the audience has proven that they can handle that they want that. And I literally never thought this would ever happen, to where you have 3 different universes of DC Comics characters at the same time existing, with production being put forward for all these different fucking movies. They just talked about Margot Robbie making another spin-off of another like follow-up to Birds of Prey. Like she's still going to get the opportunity because I think she signed on for, not even including the Suicide Squad, she signed on for Birds of Prey and a second movie, so she gets to do those two to produce. So she's going to produce another one. So it's funny too. We always talk about how they're too scared to do a Batman show. How the fuck can you make that excuse now? Like you got 2 different Batman movies coming out with you're pumping millions of dollars into movies, Batman's. How can you not go into production for a fucking television show? You can make it like a light budget, make it gritty. You don't have to have too much special effects because of how street level you want to do it. Like how do you there's no excuse now. You know what I mean? Like there's no
especially because they with the HBO Max, why not just make a show for HBO Max?
Yep.
To keep the subscribers that are gonna, because like you said, how many people are gonna subscribe as soon as it hits, on there?
Yeah,
probably millions. And to keep them on instead of just leaving after them, instead of just unsubscribing after the movie, why not just do an HBO Max show?
Yep.
And who knows how many people are going to be in for this? Because a lot of people were campaigning all this time. The whole release the Snyder Cut, the hashtags, the signs in Times Square, the plane flying over the Super Bowl, pulling the sign. But you have to think that that's a minority of, like with anything else, the vocal people are the minority. There has to be a ton more people that find out, oh, it's actually coming out. Oh, okay, I'll buy HBO Max to watch that. I wanted to see this, but I wasn't, going to spend my time campaigning on the internet.
Yeah, it is an insane. I mean, I guess we got to think like streaming and the internet for this, because movies would have never done this on their own. Like movie studio heads would have never had the balls to do this shit. They're too afraid of losing just $1 to make anything too specific. And fuck, man, like this is just you can't be mad about this because you're getting everything you want. If you're done with Affleck's Batman, you're tired of it, you don't like it, you got Pattinson coming. You know what I mean? If you are upset that Batman got replaced with Pattinson, you don't want to even see it. You got fucking Justice League Snyder Cut coming. Like it's insane. I can't believe it. It's crazy. It's amazing.
I'm gonna buy Sean Murphy a subscription to HBO Max. Okay.
Yeah, we need to have every time if they're doing it in that episode format, we need to have Sean Murphy come back for a reaction episode for every release of Snyder Cut and just pound it into his head. It's funny because God, who was it? I think it was on Instagram on one of the posts that we had about him. And someone was like, I couldn't stand how much he was bashing Snyder. I almost had to turn it off.
I saw that in the YouTube comment.
That's what it was. I was like, what was that? I can't remember what
I think I replied to it and said, yeah, I got to have a talk with him.
So fucking funny, man. Grumps.
Yes.
Your thoughts on both the Batman and Justice League Snyder Cut having their own fucking existence in the same at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's cool. It's great, first of all, I didn't think they would do this Snyder Cut business. So and I was like ready to move on from it, But that's the way I am with all the fucking movies. Like as soon as I see it or the series ends, I'm like, all right, who's gonna play Batman next?
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it. I kind of wish they would have launched Max with the movie. That would have made sense in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah.
No, of course. As much Batman as we can get,
This is a whole different Grumps we're hearing some of these days. It's like Crisis on Infinite
It's all quarantine Grumps. But at the same time, do you want to go work for these people that are going to change this shit or cave into internet pressure? Once you do a project, I'm not any type of creative person, so I don't know, but it's I think it sets a kind of bad precedent.
Yeah, like you're giving bullies too much of a voice.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's to my benefit. You know, it's more, more
Actually,
Batman. But
if you analyze it far enough, though, you can say that. Well, is it maybe their response to critic responses? You know, what led to them changing the creator's original vision and saying, you guys didn't like this? Okay, we'll change it. So now they just got pushed and, hey, put out what you were supposed to put out. This is what we signed up for.
It's it's
so
like
it
that.
Depends which side you want to take of it.
It's like that meme of that fat like goth kid wearing a Nightwish shirt, and he's holding a razor blade to his wrist, like release the Snyder Cut or else. And, no, it's that's a good point though, because they did. I mean, number one, they really fucked over Snyder by, from what it sounds like, is yes, he turned in a product that they were not 100% like jazzed about, but they used his family emergency as an opportunity to, and when they made the statements, everything in the media was saying that they had Whedon on to finish his vision, meaning that he was going to come on and finish what he started. When in reality, they rewrote and reshot. From the Hollywood Reporter article, Snyder says that he thinks that there's only 1/4 of his footage that was used in the movie. Like, they fucking completely trashed all his, like, they took his movie, they cut it up, took a little, like, you know what it was? You order a big bucket of KFC chicken, like Joey Tribbiani, big bucket of KFC chicken, you only eat the skin. They took they took the skin off the chicken, and they threw the chicken away, and they ate the skin. That was just, I mean, the skin's delicious, but it's not what it's not what you paid for.
But there was things in BVS that people didn't like Lex Luthor and Doomsday and
right,
you know, shit like that.
I think the studio was, because I remember he didn't start Justice League obviously until there was a lot of time after BVS when all of the people who were complaining about the tone had been heard. So Warner Brothers, they told him, they're like, dude, you can't make this as dark as BVS. You got to lighten it up. And I think he said, okay, but he probably said really in his head, like, fuck you, you know, like, okay, yeah, I'll make it lighter. Like, I'll make a little bit more like, you know, whatever. I'll put more heart because Victor or whoever, the Flash, would have more heart. Who knows? But it seems like it was still so close to BVS that the studio was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, we told you not to do this. And that is what is interesting, is like, man, it was so different than what we ended up getting. Like, I really want to see that. Like,
the trailers.
The trailer comparison, you know, and how they completely changed the color palette. That was crazy, man. It's
like it didn't look like a big budget studio. Like it didn't look like Warner Brothers put this shit out. Like, wow. I thought the effects were terrible in Justice League. Yeah. I mean, hopefully they're better in the Snyder Cut.
There's two distinct scenes when I remember thinking, like, why would, like, they, and that was before we knew what had happened. So obviously this was like, because of reshoots, they had to do that under a budget. One scene that I remember is when Aquaman is talking to Bruce Wayne, you know, at the very beginning of the movie, and he jumps in the water. Like, he jumps in the water and he kind of like jumps back first and he swims away that way. I remember thinking the background of the ocean and then like the scenery in the background was so fucking fake looking and so obviously CG. I was like, you could easily film that somewhere on location and not put any effects and it would look better than that. Why did they do that? Yeah. Obviously because that was probably reshot and they had to make a budget out of it. And then the second one was multiple times when they're in like the big hangar in the Batcave when they're talking and Bruce is fighting with Diana, they're talking shit to each other. Like, the background looks like on, you know, when you do Skype or Zoom calls and you can like fuzz out the background, like you can blur or make the background buttery. It's what it looked like. They put some weird effect to make the background blurry so we couldn't tell that it was like a blue or green screen. Like those scenes specifically are such an eyesore and make so much sense now when you think of, oh fuck, those were reshoots, and they literally couldn't go on location because they didn't have the money and they've already spent so much, so they just did it all against a green screen and they just had to fucking go with it. Like, that's it, and how Snyder is about. If anything else, like you can talk shit about his writing, you could talk shit about his tone, you could talk shit about him not knowing the characters. That motherfucker knows how to set up a shot and make a pretty picture. You know what I mean? So the images that we didn't get in Justice League, like just the cinematography that is probably out there on the cutting room floor that we're going to get to see now, that is awesome. Also, again, I didn't hate Justice League. Didn't hate it. I actually like it. I've watched it multiple times since. I'm not afraid to say it. However, if you just replace the Danny Elfman score with Junkie XL, it becomes a far superior movie just doing that. Just changing the soundtrack back to what it probably should have been will make it that much better.
And as far as the part of people not liking some of the versions of characters that are in this world, I won't do the long version of this because I know we talked about this when BVS came out, when Man of Steel came out, everything. But this was originally meant to be at least a 5-movie story overall, starting with Man of Steel and getting to the end of Zack's story.
Yeah.
All of these characters were on character arcs, and some of them we met at the very beginning of them becoming who they would be. Yeah. And if Zack or Lex is the best example of it, because look at the Lex that you meet, from the first scene he's in. He's not a super criminal, and this whole story was his origin. You were going to see him becoming the super criminal Lex Luthor. He was just an eccentric, weirdo, rich kid that had his dad's money and this billion-dollar company. Yeah. And then by the time you get to that post-credit scene, I think it's the post-credit scene on Justice League, on the book with Slade, then he's broken out of prison, out of Arkham, and he's on this yacht wearing a suit with the shaved head, and he's already drastically changed from who he was when we first met him.
He's complete.
All the characters were like that, and like people complained about Superman, like, oh, he wasn't the Christopher Reeve Superman. Well, the Christopher Reeve Superman we were presented with had been Superman for years.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Man of Steel, what you're seeing is him becoming Superman. So he's learning who he is and what he's all about. And by the end of the story, he was going to be the Superman that you know. Yeah, that goes for all the characters. They were all.
What about Joe Manganiello?
He's going to be apparently back in it.
Well, he tweeted something that there was a confrontation with him with Deathstroke and Batman that maybe it was filmed.
He said the OG post-credit scene.
Well, and also on Twitter, he put on he said something like that, but also he had like a little symbol of a bat, swords, and then a skull.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh shit! Wait a minute, was there a fight scene between Batman and Deathstroke? Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys?
I'm excited for that shit.
Don't you remember when Affleck posted that tease of the footage of Deathstroke on the Flying Fox?
Yeah.
Do you guys think that was? Do you think that was a camera test, or do you think that was like legit footage of the movie?
I think that was probably personally. I hope it was like a legit scene where maybe Deathstroke is on the Flying Fox and he has a fight again. Maybe even just like a brief fight, and then somehow then he goes and breaks out Lex.
So it
wasn't the word for a while that in the Batman solo movie that Affleck was going to do, wasn't Manganiello's Deathstroke supposed to be in that at some point?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think the Justice League was supposed to introduce him, and Deathstroke was in the original Batman script that he wrote with Jeff Johns, and that eventually got scrapped.
That Jay Oliva said was the best Batman script he ever read.
He's ever read. Yeah, man. It's that's another thing. Like Joe Manganiello, literally, he did an interview where he talked about how he was thankful that he got the opportunity, but that he pretty much realized like, oh, that ship has sailed. Like that door is closed because it didn't go with Snyder's vision. So that's the only place I really existed. And yeah, they teased me in Justice League, but not to the degree where it would have been in the Batman. And because they didn't make the Batman movie the way it ended up being, that closed the door on that face off with the character. So I think he was done. Now this is like literally an opportunity for him to come back as that character that he thought he would never be able to do. So fucking A, man. Like that's what I think is so awesome about this is like, even if you continue the Batman, even if you don't go with Snyder's overall like arc, you could. They did it with Aquaman. They're doing it with Wonder Woman. They're continuing on with those actors in a whatever you want to say, whatever kind of universe. You have fucking Cyborg. You have Flash. You have Deathstroke. They've already been on screen. Like, don't fucking waste them. Use them somehow, at least. Like, if not in solo movies. There's just so much opportunity with. All these cast members that have already been proven, and it would be a shame to allow them to all slip away. Like the biggest fucking tragedy already happened. Affleck, they let him slip away, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a fucking, because that's another thing too. Like as much as this opens opportunities to continue on with the Snyder, some form of whatever, either a movie, HBO Max, whatever, you could still kind of do it with like. It's going to be completely up to Affleck to come back, and from what he stated the last couple of times, he's done. Like he's over it.
But I don't feel like it's impossible for them to be able to entice him back if it's for, hey, look, this is not for some big blockbuster movie thing. How about doing a mini series for HBO Max? Whatever you and Zach had planned, or whatever you and Jeff had planned. Make like a 6-episode miniseries, tell the story you wanted to tell, and you get to do it your way. And none of the pressure, because one of the big problems he had was the pressure that he was taking and all the hits he was getting in the media. And so this would be a much more low pressure place to do that.
I think the only way he does that is if Snyder's on board and convinces him to, because that was who did it. That's who got him to do it in the first place, and that's why he left.
All these people are so loyal to Zach.
But in my opinion too, like it would really just depend on if Affleck were to get back in, then that whole universe moves forward. And the biggest problem was it was just a series of events where the fact that Snyder couldn't do it canceled out everything. Like Aquaman was pretty much at a halt after making $1 billion. They should have already made a sequel. Wonder Woman's already been delayed over a year and a half almost. Flash had already had a movie. Like one thing rippled to the next, and now we've wasted so much time. And now this is an opportunity to kind of reboot everything. But if Affleck's not in it, I don't see these other movies happening as quickly or having relevance,
Yeah. I mean,
it's nuts because it's almost been, like you said, it's almost been, 2.5 years? Like, that's such a big gap and so much lost opportunity.
That's why this is gonna be the test to see the interest and to see the willingness to go forward. I was blown away that they were continuing on with like any loosely connected universe with dude. Honestly, like I don't mean to keep bashing the fact that Birds of Prey like was allowed to pull into elements of Suicide. Like Birds of Prey kept Suicide Squad, that universe, alive. Like that Joker, that Suicide Squad universe is alive because of Birds of Prey. And it's like that movie, it's on life support. Like you took and you're on life support, like it's almost brain dead, but you're like, nah, let's keep him connected. Let's just let him see what happens. Let's see if he wakes up. Like that's kind of like what it seems like for that. So if they're willing to do that with fucking Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, you gotta be willing to do that shit with the rest, Like Wonder Woman, $1 billion franchise, Aquaman, $1 billion fucking A, well, I don't think Wonder Woman made $1 billion, did it? I think just Aquaman.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but I mean Gal Gadot, like A-list Hollywood celebrity. Like people are gonna go watch whatever she makes if it's a Wonder Woman movie. But yeah, like if you can get Affleck back, man, that's like that would be the hat trick. Is
right?
You got Snyder back. Holy fuck! I can't believe they did it. You got Snyder back. You know, you're continuing on the Snyder Cut universe, and you got Affleck back. That's crazy. But you cannot say that. You can no longer say things are impossible anymore. I did not think, even with the movement the way it was and how strong it was and how much pace it picked up since November, I did not think they were going to announce it this soon. I did not think we would see it in 2021. I swear to God. I thought this was going to be like 5 years down the line.
Well, we talked a bit about the Cavill stuff and the rumor that he's going to be showing up in other movies. I think the most obvious place to have him show up is whatever comes next for Shazam, whether it's the second Shazam or the Black Adam movie.
You mean Shazam?
Because, yes, Shazam, my bad. Because they had that little part at the end where someone else in a Superman suit showed up in the end there. You know, we already have that he knows Shazam now.
Yeah.
And you know, they have enough history. You know, there was in the comics, and they did the animated adaptation of the Superman and Shazam versus Black Adam story. So they could bring him into that whole thing.
It's especially because The Rock's ex-wife is so involved. Like they haven't announced. I swear to God, I think that there's something already in place where they've already got Cavill signed on, or they're going to, and they're just waiting to announce it. She won't dude. She got Cavill as a client. She's going to do everything she can to make sure that motherfucker is still Superman. Like there's no, especially if The Rock is Black Adam, that's like the bridge for Cavill to come back. There's no way he is not coming back as Superman in my eyes. You know, and it's fucking dope because it's all started with him. It all started with Man of Steel and Cavill. So, and which I was thinking about it the other day. Like that's still one of my favorite fucking movies. I love Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So good. First Flight, that scene where he flies for the first time, and the music and the score, like that was like fucking dope. But any other thoughts, guys?
Can't wait.
Good shit.
I can't believe I can't believe we live in a time when the Grumplers excited for a Justice League Snyder Cut. I'm so happy. Is anything to take away?
You know what, Tom? Honestly, I'm surprised that we live in a time where the Grumpler likes both Snyders. I mean, both their visions.
Well, depends on what week you're talking to.
Yeah.
Depends on what arc, but yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah. Let's not get carried away.
Aside from all the movie stuff, I don't want to take this in a horribly political direction or anything like that, but we do have a platform, and I feel like we should say something out there. There's a lot of fucked up stuff going on in the world, and things have to change. Say something. Don't just be silent. You don't have to be out in protests and everything, but stand up for what's right. Say something, and things have to change.
Robin, I really wish you wouldn't have said that, because we just lost so many white ignorant listeners.
Oh, I know.
I'm really upset about it.
I posted something earlier, and I'm sure I already lost a couple hundred followers.
Yeah, man. Bottom line, if you're a cop, please don't kill innocent civilians.
Yeah.
Like, please don't. And if you're a good cop, like, please do something about it.
Yeah, or like what you were saying. I mean, if you're standing there, and it'd just be like if you went out to eat or went to go shoot pool, whatever, with your friends, and all of a sudden, you see your friend is beating the shit out of some guy for no reason. You're probably gonna step in and be like, hey,
what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, step back, calm down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a sad, scary time, because I think that it's obviously that unfortunately for some individuals, a badge gives you this freedom or this sense of security or this sense of oh man, what's the word? Like you feel like you're like just the fact that no one stopped them, like none of the other cops stopped it, I think is like I think it's because they thought they're I don't know, like they're protected. You know what I mean? Like they don't have to stop it because it's like, oh, this is our side. I'm on this side, so I can't stop it because this is my team. Whereas like, no, dude, if your team is fucking up, you like get in their face and tell them stop fucking up. But yeah, man, take care of each other. Put pressure on the people in power to, keep you safe. And if they don't, fucking challenge it and use your voice and power to challenge it. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people are scared and angry, and it's leading to chaos and rioting and shit. But hopefully, this brings more awareness to the fact that there are a significant amount of individuals in our country who are feeling alienated and not spoken for, and that's it. You just gotta fucking listen. And it's nice to see at least like there's certain cities that have like police officers and police chiefs that are out there talking to people. That's good to see.
Yeah, if you are a law enforcement officer, people want to trust you.
Yeah.
Don't abuse that trust. And that's why we are where we are right now.
Yeah. But I just can't wait for 4 more years of this, guys. And that's all. I'll leave it like that. I'll leave it with that.
In the immortal words of Usher, let it burn.
All right, boys. Bad Force Radio. Seacrest. I can't beve it. I can't believe Justice League. Seacrest.
Snyder out.
Snyder out.